I would say whatever you're sort of trying to go towards, if it's aviation, something else, try get into it before you start, the actual course or the university, whatever you're doing, start doing research and your own stuff before. Because you'll enjoy it. If you love it, you'll love it, and you'll know before you get there if you want to do it or not. So.
Hello and welcome back down to the Farm podcast with me, Henry Carpenter. I started this podcast due to me having a life-changing accident on the family farm when I was 14. Since then, bringing people with this podcast down to the farm for open chats about all sorts of topics, mental health, sparring journeys and so much more. This week's guest is Elliott Gibson, a lifelong friend of mine, a really, really nice guy and an ambitious young man. He has always, honestly, since I first met him, wanted to be a pilot. I have no memories of Elliott where he has not wanted to be a pilot. And he's just achieved that. He's just got his commercial pilot's license. So I'm so proud of him as a mate. But obviously, this is a long, long process. And this is a 6 year process of leading up to actually getting this goal. So I get to interview this man about how he's enjoyed the process, also the advisories he would give to people. And also we get to have an insight into the aviation industry, which is something down the farm I never thought we'd be able to do. So let me introduce this man, Mr. Elliott Gibson.
So Gibbo, I've known you for donkey's years now. Like probably the first time we had a conversation would have been when we were 9 or 10 years old, and it probably was around aviation or something whereabouts. Obviously, regarding your background as well. So, what started the dream off for you, especially coming from a sort of island Tortola in the British Virgin Islands, which is also in the Caribbean for people who don't know. What started the dream of aviation? Obviously, there isn't a massive airport anyway. You're on the island that you live on.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, like you said, being on an island, growing up on an island, to go anywhere, you'd literally have to take a plane to go anywhere. So, obviously I've been flying on planes, small planes, whatever, since, basically since I was born. And I mean, I've always wanted to do aviation, be a pilot ever since I can remember. And I think just, being on those planes all the time and, seeing the cockpit as you walk out and just like looking inside and going, oh my God, like how many like stuff's going on in there, it's always fascinated me. So I think that's probably the reason I've always wanted to do it. Yeah, I mean.
And when did it sort of become realistic? Did it almost, I mean, obviously, for those who don't know, you then went to UK school when you were, was it 9 or 10 years old?
Yeah, 9 years old. I went to Aberley at 9. Yeah.
So obviously, going from leaving home is a big thing, I suppose, at that age as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, going from a very small island, it's, super small to go into, a foreign country, at 9 years old. But I think, doing it at a young age, it almost gives you the best of everything. You've grown up somewhere, you've gone to another country, and as you've grown up, you've gone to school, and you just opens up so many opportunities for things to do. The whole education system, and it just opens up so many opportunities to get into different industries and stuff. So that was probably the best thing for me, because if I would have stayed on that,
yeah. And obviously we would never met either, which could have.
Exactly.
But I mean, moving on to like the dream, it's almost a dream turning into reality, isn't it? When you're like 15, 16, you're actually going to start to make this happen, aren't you? Like starting to choose your A levels. So was it a bit of a hit, I suppose, when you sort of were saying, oh, actually, I've got to achieve physics and I've got to achieve maths A levels and I've got to take this a bit more seriously? Did a dream ever feel a bit more of a harsh reality, or was it always still like working towards that end goal?
I mean, I was always, working towards it. I've always wanted to do it. It's the only thing basically I've ever wanted to do as a job. And funnily enough, you actually don't need A levels to get to be a pilot. You do need GCSEs, so you will need to do, your maths, your science, your English, and get C grades or above. But you actually won't need A levels. However, if you are looking to be a commercial pilot or something like that, I would recommend you do either maths or physics A levels, because by the time you get to do your training, especially the ground school stuff at the start, it's really going to help you be able to do that and manage that a lot better. Because there is some maths and some physics to be a pilot that you do need. So it gives you a good step up if you do A levels for maths and physics, but you don't necessarily need it.
And yeah, talk us through the process. What is the process of sort of applying to be a pilot, and just talk us through from basically from when you start to apply to the finish and getting your pilot license, which you've just done commercially. What's the process?
I mean, yes. So there are basically two main ways you can go about it. I'll run through the way that I did it first, and then I'll explain sort of the other way you can do it. But the way I did it was it's a integrated course. So you apply to one of these companies that does the full training for the ATPL license, which is sort of the highest license you can get and covers all the licenses below. You'll do an assessment day. You'll get a bunch of cognitive tests. You'll do maths, physics tests. There's a whole selection day of tests. You'll get a little group exercise with whoever else is there interviewing, and then from there you'll do an interview, a one-on-one interview. And if they think you're basically good for the course, they will accept you into the course. So then from there, for my course, it was split down into the ground school section. So we did that down in London in the training centre, and that was 6 months of ATP exams with 13 total examinations on everything to do with aviation that you need to know to be a pilot. That bit is probably the hardest section, I would say. But it's very intense. You've got to get 75% or above in each of the exams. And then if you're looking for airlines, then most of them require you to get 85% or above. So it's very tricky. I spent hours and hours a day, like the hardest I've ever worked in my whole life. Honestly, like A levels seems like a walk in the park in comparison. It was actually insane. So I would say be aware of that for the ground school. It is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do.
You were saying, I remember you telling me you were like, oh, it's equivalent. When I went to your flat when you were first training, was it the BA stuff you start doing or whatever?
It was. I wasn't tagged with anyone, but yeah, the ground school stuff.
Yeah. And you were saying it was equivalent to like two A levels or A level every 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah,
That's how much you had to study and learn.
Yeah. I mean, I ended up doing, I think it was something like 42,000 exam questions in that 6 months to be able to pass all the exams, and it really did show if you put in the work or not. So it really filtered out all those people who, were going into it thinking, oh, this could be fun, to be a pilot. But the people who got through were the people who were dedicated, who really wanted it, So it's actually quite good how they design it in that way.
Absolutely. So and then you're obviously moving on from the ground school stuff to actually starting to fly.
Yeah. So from ground school, after that, we then went over to Sanford, Florida, for the commercial pilot license training. So that basically was 7 months of flying. So you start off in the sort of single engine aircraft, and you've got an instructor. They teach you the ropes. You actually end up going solo after the first 11 lessons. So it's pretty it's pretty quick. You get put through pretty quickly. And then you start doing, all the cross-country navigation stuff and, all the contents before going on to the multi-engine, the two-engine aircraft, which is, again, a lot bigger than the single engine. So it's quite a big step up. But I think at that point, it really starts to feel real, what you're doing. You start to feel like you're flying an actual sort of aircraft rather than like a little toy, you know what I mean? Because those small ones, they're good fun, but it doesn't sort of feel it doesn't feel like a massive plane sort of thing. So yeah, but we do that. We start learning sort of the instrument flying. So we've only been flying previously that looking outside the windows, flying with visual reference to the ground and stuff. So we then go and fly in the clouds, so you can't see anything. So we start learning about that, and then we finish off the Florida section with the commercial pilot test, basically. Which was something. That was.
And I mean, it's quite interesting. I mean, I've seen like this shows my knowledge of flying industry. And we've flown together anyway. Well, I say flown. We've been in the same plane together, and you know how much a nervous flyer I am. So I mean, for me, it would be absolutely nerve-wracking to even think about contemplating doing something like that. Like you're having the whole whatever you call it, 737, whatever you call the Boeing things. Like having that. Oh, it must be nerve-wracking, especially the age of 19, 18, to be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I never really. I mean, yeah, obviously, for like your first solo or your exam, you get a bit of nervousness, but I actually never really found it a problem. Every single lesson I had, every single lesson I really enjoyed. And my instructor actually, she who I had for most of the course, she would always we'd always get back from a flight, and I would always say, "Oh my God, that was so much fun that lesson." She was like, "Oh, yeah, of course you said that. Like you always say that." I'm like, "I know, but like it's really fun." And I
Yeah.
had an amazing time there. Like, flying to all the different airports across Florida, seeing all the views, all the sort of challenges you get, when you're in the aircraft and all the stuff you got to learn. It's so fun. And if it's something you're passionate about, I don't think there will be a point where you sort of start doubting yourself if you really put in the effort, you're
Mm.
trying your best. Most of the course should be fairly, not easy, but it should be fairly manageable. It's been designed that way, for people like that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So in terms of like you passing, as I guess it's you're starting this now, as what's for listeners who wouldn't know, what kind of involves a day in life as a pilot? Because obviously I think it varies if you're long haul, short haul.
Yeah, so the type of flights we were doing were sort of just very short flights across Florida. You'd only be flying for 2.5 hours sort of thing. But the way the school did it was you might have a flight in the afternoon. It might be 5 a.m. in the morning. It could be 8 o'clock at night. So you could be flying whenever, but you go out, you do your flight, and you'd come back and you just do basically one flight per day, pretty much for the whole course. But then when you get to the airlines, obviously it is a little bit different because you're doing longer flights and you're doing more of them, I guess, in a day. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And obviously does it depend what when you're becoming the pilot now you're qualified like yourself, does it depend on what airline you work with is sort of your shift and rota sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously
Like,
there's regulations as well.
yeah, like if you, for example, if you go to somewhere like Wizz Air, at the moment they've got their, European flights, their short haul. So you'll be doing, maybe from 2 to 4 flights in a day. Whereas if you go to BA, for example, and you end up going to the long haul, then, you'll do maybe one flight a day, over the world. So it does depend on which sector you go in. At the moment, I'm looking at going to start with short haul, which most people do, and then they go long haul later on down the line.
Absolutely, mate. That's great to
Yeah,
hear, and
yeah, yeah.
thank you for telling us through, like sharing us through what it's like.
No, of course, yeah, yeah.
Because I wouldn't have any idea really if it wasn't for like someone like you giving me insight. So obviously going through all of this, and you're such a positive guy about it, because you have it. But I want to sort of title the episode about ambition because you have so
Yeah.
much ambition as a young person. I know we're the same age, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean. You have so much ambition to achieve. Don't laugh, you set me off. Uh, uh, to achieve goals so quickly. And this has been you've put so much aside, of especially social life and stuff. You put it, and you've been really ambitious to get this done. And good for you. So there must have been a time where you thought that like this is too much, or like to give up. Was there any point in this journey where you thought this is going to be a bit too much for me?
Yeah, so I mean, for most of the course, it's been fine, but during ground school, there was, at points, times where you think, how on earth, am I going to do this? You're putting in the work, but because of how much content there was in such a short period of time, it does become, sometimes a bit unmanageable. And, that's where I think, having, all your friends and stuff around you who are on, on the same course, you got to take some time off sometimes, when it gets too much. Friday night, go out to the pub, you got to take that time off to sort of reset. And there were definitely times where you'd be getting, close to the exams, going, oh, I don't know how this is going to go because you never know the exams, and you only get a certain amount of retakes, and because you had that such high pass mark that you need to get,
Mm.
it was questionable. Can I do this? But you end up managing. You find your own ways to sort of get through it. But I think to have that sort of basis of positive, I can do this, I want to do this, having that want to do something, you can do it, if you
It's
have that.
definitely risk and reward sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just take the risk and go for it. A really good example. So, like reflecting on all of this, for somebody who is younger than you by a couple of years or whatever, and was wanting to get into the flying industry, what advice would you give, and what main points would you give to somebody who's looking to start this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing, do your own research and learning beforehand. that is probably the biggest thing. That's the thing that's helped me most throughout this whole time is, doing all that pre-reading, even a couple of years before I joined the course, doing that pre-reading. It sounds stupid, but get yourself a flight sim if you want to do something like this. Get yourself a flight sim, put in the hours on there, learn how the aircraft works, how it flies. Because that translates directly into real life. It may sound a bit weird, stupid. Oh, I'm playing a video game, but they're sort of designed for that. So I would say whatever you're sort of trying to go towards, if it's aviation, something else, try get into it before you start the actual course or the university, whatever you're doing. Start doing research and your own stuff before, because you'll enjoy it. If you love it, you'll love it, and you'll know before you get there if you want to do it or not. So I would say definitely do your own stuff beforehand and sort of get ahead. That's my biggest piece of advice.
I think that's a great piece of advice. I think you've done it from get go. You got a flight sim when you were really young.
Yeah.
And it is like everyone thinks, especially the television industry that I'm working in this moment, is just everyone thinks you have to wait for that magic moment to happen,
No.
but it won't happen. You have to start building up your own base and understanding before you get the opportunity. The opportunity is only going to really come if you manage to meet the right person.
No, of course, yeah.
So like for you, for instance, when you went for interviews for the actual flying school, you having that knowledge already obviously is a very, very big asset.
Yeah, 100%. Like you can, and even some of that stuff you can, if you got experience, you can put that on your CV, which will again help you to secure these places, So definitely start before you start, basically.
And in terms of you possibly giving advice, would there be advice you give to your younger self, like your actual younger self?
Ooh.
Because obviously there must be some things that you might have got wrong along the way in terms of that application process, or possibly something learning curve, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I've been quite lucky throughout the whole thing, really, to sort of get through it so smoothly. But I would say, main thing, sort of have patience. It goes quick and it's a lot of work, but sort of don't be rushing towards the end too quickly. Enjoy the sort of journey. It sounds so cliche, but enjoy, while you're there doing it. Yes, you want to get to the end. Yes, you want to be finished, but just take a minute and just be like, I've always wanted to do this, and now I'm here doing it. When you've got that 2 a.m., 3 a.m. wake up for a flight, and you're like, oh, I can't be asked out of bed. Just remember, look, this is what I've always wanted to do. Be grateful that you're now tired for something that you've always dreamt of doing. So
Absolutely,
just enjoy it. Yeah, that's the main thing.
Absolutely, mate. And the plans for Gibbo next is I keep referring you to Gibbo or to Elliot, but I probably just realised I'm just calling you Gibbo throughout the whole time. Obviously, because you're Gibbo to me, Gibson, hence the last name. And the plans next for you is Wizette. That's the next one along for you.
Yeah. So after we did Florida, we touched back on that. We went to Ireland, finished off the last bit of the instrument flying in the multi-engine, got our final license, and then we came back and we're looking to go towards now sort of the more airline training. So I'm currently tagged with Wizz Air, so I've had an interview with them, a technical and a personal interview, and they've sort of had an assessment and said, right, we're interested in you. When you come out the course, if you meet these certain requirements, then we'll come back, we'll get in touch, and we'll go from there, basically. So the next bit I've got really is going and doing the sort of crew training, so learning how to work as a crew in the cockpit, in the flight deck, and then from there, hopefully, Wiz is still interested, and I'll get picked up by them to finish off the type rating, which is just learning about the specific aircraft to be flying, basically, and then start flying passengers pretty soon after that. So it's all wrapping up.
Passengers better buckle in.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on Down the Farm. It's obviously for the Down the Farm podcast is very much a different world, aviation.
Yeah.
But so much admiration for how much you've done already, and hopefully you're a very good spokesperson for what you do. So hopefully you're going to do a bit more of this sort of stuff in the future, possibly as well.
Yeah,
I know you've done a bit on your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. I've got a few videos on there.
Give it a follow. But thank you for coming on. I hope you really enjoyed it.
No, I did. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'd say Elliott's a very high achiever there, but okay, excuses a joke, that was awful. But yeah, Elliott, what an absolutely ambitious young lad. He's done he's my best mate, one of my best mates, and he's done so well. I haven't seen him for a couple of years, but what he's achieved and what he's going to go on to achieve is so inspiring for his young age. So to be ambitious and just go and follow those goals, we've done a lot of episodes about this. Just go and do it, guys. Honestly, it's a big message. And what a great insight he gave us to the aviation industry. So much goes on with planes, so much happens every day in that industry, and it was great to just dabble in that a bit for that episode. So go and check Elliott out. I'll leave all the stuff below, how you can follow him and support him on his journey, and hopefully he's just about to start his first job with Wizz Air, and good luck to the man. All the best for him from all of us at the podcast. So go and check out all the episodes out there. Follow us at Down the Farm Podcast on socials, and don't be afraid to go down the pub and give your fellow mates a hug. We'll speak soon, guys. Hope you enjoy and have a great week.